Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mark Stoops, the Kentucky Wildcats, continue to dominate in the transfer portal, landing another commitment from wide receiver from North Texas, Jamori, Macklin. And this is a guy that you look at the 24/7 sports rankings, the 26th wide receiver in this transfer portal cycle. I'll say this, out of the offers that he had and the schools expressing interest in a guy like Jamori Macklin, I were to guess these Power 5 programs like Kentucky, like LSU, like Auburn, who all offered him, value him as a higher receiver than the 26th best wide receiver in the class. This is a massive get for Kentucky. And you look at Kentucky overhauling this offense. You go and get Brock Vandagriff. You go and get wide receiver Raymond Cottrell, Chip Trainum, now Jamori Macklin. This is an offense that you're looking forward to in 2024, saying we might see some massive steps in the right direction, especially in the passing attack. Right, you bring in Brock Vandagriff. This is a Kentucky program last year that struggled to move the ball through the air. Right, a 55% completion percentage. That was 108th in the country, and only 6.9 yards per pass attempt. That was 76th. Now you bring in a former five-star quarterback in Brock Vandagriff. You bring in two really talented receivers in Raymond Cottrell and now Jamori Macklin. This is an offense that I think we're going to see some massive strides in 2024. Mark Stoops doing a phenomenal job addressing this team's needs in the transfer portal. Before we get into Jamori Macklin, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to Big Blue Nation. This is a program we've talked a ton about the last couple of days as they're getting extremely active in the portal, and the amount of support you guys have shown, it's been absolutely amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content and enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. And I have a feeling this is not going to be the last update for Kentucky in the transfer portal. So appreciate you guys being here. And let's get into Jamori Macklin. And the first thing that jumps out of the page here is the production. Like whether it's at the Power 5 level, whether it's at the Group of 5 level, this is a guy that has gotten it done. He was originally at Missouri, transferred to North Texas. In 2023, 57 catches for over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. But the number that jumps out to me, and I think jumped out to Mark Stoops and this coaching staff, was 17.6 yards per catch. This was a Kentucky offense that really struggled to push the ball down the field, hit some of those explosive plays in the passing attack. Jamori Macklin, averaging almost 18 yards per catch, is certainly going to help in that department. And what I love about Jamori Macklin after getting in some of the film is he's a guy, a wide receiver that wins at all three levels, right? He's really good after the catch, so he can create separation early in his route trees, kind of take some of those short intermediate catches and kind of make big plays out of him, makes people miss. He's extremely good mover with the football in his hands. But I think the thing I love the most is what he does down the field. And you take a look, you see it on the film, you see it on the highlights, but you take a look at the numbers: 11 catches, 20 plus yards down the field, another 16 catches, 10 plus yards down the field. This is a guy that thrives working vertically, working with that deeper third in his route tree. And it kind of something that I think Kentucky wanted to address in the offseason. Another thing that kind of jumps out is a 41% contested catch rate. So although he's not the biggest wide receiver that you see at 5'11", 185 pounds, he's a guy that knows how to address the football when it's in the air. You see some jump balls, you see some back shoulders, and again, not the biggest guy, but really comfortable doing it. That 41% contested catch rate is a massive number for Kentucky. An all-around complete wide receiver that is going to be a day one impact maker for this Kentucky offense. And I want to just take us to what Mark Stoops and this coaching staff have done in the transfer portal. And they kind of identified the positions that they wanted to improve. And they identified the positions. Then they identified the players. Then they got those guys on campus and they got them committed, right? Brock Vandagriff kind of headlining the class, the former five-star quarterback coming from the Georgia Bulldogs. And I think that was a massive get, because when you're trying to recruit a guy like Raymond Cottrell or Jamori Macklin or Donovan McCulley in the transfer portal, you need to sell that they're going to have a quality quarterback throwing them the football. Brock Vandagriff, although hasn't played a ton of football yet at the college level, is one of the more talented arms that you see in college football. So you get him locked in. You get Raymond Cottrell now and Jamori Macklin, and you can't forget about Chip Trainum, who I compare it to Chris Rodriguez in terms of the physicality and how he runs behind his pads. This is an offense that has gotten 4 difference makers on the offensive side of the football, and we're not even, 10 days into the transfer portal being open. I mean, this is a phenomenal job by Mark Stoops. And what I also want to highlight And this is something that I think gets lost in the conversation of the transfer portals. Not only are they doing a phenomenal job getting guys in the portal and addressing those needs, they're also balancing it out with a loaded high school class. You scroll up and take a look at it in this 2024 cycle. It's a top 25 class in the country. You're loaded on the defensive line, but you have some really talented guys coming in on the offense too. Cutter Boley, one of the more sought-after quarterbacks of this class. You scroll down, Jason Patterson at the running backs back, Tavani Mazzell, a guy that flies and also is a big physical runner as well. You look at this Kentucky offense, and you're starting to feel really good about not only what it's going to be in 2024, but what this program is going to look like for the next couple of years. And again, I feel like you see some of those programs that forget to recruit the high school class, and you get so wrapped up in the new faces in the transfer portal that you look at the top programs, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, they recruit out of the high school class and they use the transfer portal to supplement the roster. That's exactly what Mark Stoops is doing. Now, a couple other guys that I would for sure keep an eye on for Kentucky in the transfer portal, going to one more wide receiver. And again, this is a position group that, Mark Stoops and this coaching staff have clearly identified as a group that they want to improve and get more depth and talent in. Donovan McCulley, I'm going to keep saying, and this is a guy that was a former quarterback, makes the move to wide receiver, and has been awesome as a wide receiver for his first full-time year as a wide receiver at Indiana. He has a lot of interest in Kentucky, and I could see them taking one more wide receiver in this class. You talk about bringing in Raymond Cottrell, Jamori Macklin, and Donovan McCulley. You're looking at this wide receiver room with guys like Barrion Brown and Dane Key already on the roster and saying this is one of the better wide receiving groups across the SEC. Now, another position that a lot of you guys in the comment section have said you'd like to see Kentucky address is the offensive line. There's another guy that is supposed to be on campus in Lexington this weekend, and Carter Smith, someone we've talked about for a lot of different programs in the transfer portal. And it is hard to find starting caliber offensive linemen in the portal because everyone wants them, and there just ain't that many available. Carter Smith, 12-game starter in the Big Ten at Indiana. He only gave up 19 pressures last year on over 400 pass blocking snaps. There's a reason that Ole Miss and Florida State are all after a guy like Carter Smith. If Carter Smith winds up in Kentucky, you get potentially just a plug-and-play guy on that offensive line, would be absolutely massive. Obviously, teammates with Donovan McCulley at Indiana. Maybe you can get that connection going. And the last guy I want to talk about really quick is a guy in Tawaski Bridges coming from Oregon. Now, we talked about a guy in Upton Stout a couple of days ago in terms of potentially being a target, one of the more coveted DBs from Western Kentucky, but was a little shorter, right? And you guys in the comment section said, hey, I like Upton Stout's game. Not really sure if he has the frame and the size to play in the SEC. You don't have that worry with Bridges. Bridges is a guy coming from Oregon, struggled with some injuries, but something that really never lacked was the talent. And I thought when he was on the field for the Oregon Ducks, he was playing extremely well. 6'3", almost 200 pounds. He can put his hands on wide receivers. He can play the football when it's in the air. When he was on the field for Oregon, I was always impressed with how he looked and how he moved and the size that he had. I think a tremendous upside to a guy like Tawaski Bridges. Visited Florida, but it sounds like Kentucky's making a push at him as well. You want to get these bodies. There's a reason that at the college level and the NFL level, they want guys who have that frame, who have that length, because you're dealing with some physical wide receivers in the SEC. Tawaski Bridges, I think, would be a massive pickup for Kentucky in that back end where they probably struggled the most with personnel last year. Overall, you just got to be so fired up about what Mark Stoops and the staff are doing in terms of identifying where do we need to get better. You identify the players that are going to help you get better. You get them on campus. You get them committed. Kentucky continuing to roll in the transfer portal. Hot to hop on. Talk a little Jamori Macklin. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Big Blue Nation, you guys have been absolutely awesome. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.